We are currently at my daughter's apartment in Washington, D.C. This is not a standard Politics Done Right show. This beautiful young lady is my daughter.
Hi.
And I had to fly up out here because on Saturday, I get a call from my daughter that said, "Dad, I'm in the ER. I am bleeding in my brain." You know how that feels for a father. After hearing that news, I was on a plane a few hours afterwards to see my daughter. Her boyfriend, thankfully, was there giving her assistance and care, keeping her till Daddy got there. It's a miracle. Ashley, why don't you tell the audience what you had, and then I want to put the politics into what we're talking about.
Excuse me if I look over a little bit wonky. I have what we call a visual deficit. I have a visual deficit, or if you want to know the real name, a homonymous hemianopsia, which means in each eye, I have 1/2 of my visual field. So this means that if you were to look at a sheet of paper and see a picture, what I have here, I'm gonna draw it right now. These two are my eyes, right? The part that is scribbled, that scribbled part is what I do not see. That means that when I look at people, I literally see half their face. Why do I have this? Well, I was lucky enough to find out early that I have something called an AVM, or an arteriovenous malformation. What this means is that my arteries and veins formed a cluster around a structure in my brain, and in your brain too, called a thalamus. Thalamus is like the powerhouse, one of the powerhouse things of the brain, right? It controls and modulates, is the better word. It modulates.
She's a third-year medical student, so we are going to try to understand what she's saying. She's going to be simple, though. She knows how to explain.
Yeah, so the thing is this. My thalamus, your thalamus, everybody's thalamus, it controls kind of keeps in check what your brain's trying to tell your body and what the body's trying to tell the brain. It's like a mind-body connection. So I call like the thalamus kind of like a mini mission control, like Houston. Okay, so let's call it thalamus Houston. So I have this huge cluster of arteries and veins that are communicating with each other around my Houston in my brain. A lot of times you don't want arteries and veins communicating that much with each other because arteries have a lot of oxygen and veins do not. Veins take the deoxygenated blood, or blood that doesn't have a lot of oxygen, to the heart, and arteries take it away from the heart so to supply the rest of the body. And it does that all throughout the body. And in my brain, I have literally a cluster. I wish I could show you the picture, but it's a cluster. It looks like a knob, like a bag of worms around my thalamus that are twisted and tied. Well, because they're twisted and tied, it makes some of that tissue that the vessels are made out of kind of weak. And because I also have another thing called hypertension that is wonderfully inherited from this guy and my mom, it made me more likely for an event to happen, and the event being a burst of a vessel, which we called a hemorrhagic stroke. So when you hear stroke, you're like, oh, they have a stroke. There's two kinds of strokes. Embolic, which means there's something plugged, which means there's a part of your brain that doesn't get oxygen. Then you have my stroke, hemorrhagic, where something bursts and blood goes out. Luckily, the blood that I have was not that much. It was like a little bloop, and it caused irritation in the fibers called the optic radiations in my head that irritated my eye nerves and it stopped me from seeing half people's faces. Now, this is supposed to go away with time and with therapy and with work and with positivity, which actually is a real thing. Positivity is medically proven to help. Just putting that out there. So yeah, and I'm super lucky. Like how my aunt says, who's another doctor. My aunt told me, my tia, said that imagine if I was like in an airplane, right? Where simply a change in pressure. Let's say I had high blood pressure on an airplane with a change in pressure. That could have been a rupture. And then today, I recently heard that one of my friends' friend also has an AVM, arteriovenous, what I have. And she also had a stroke at my age, right? I'm 28. So it's not very common, but it happens. And she lost function of her motor. That means she can't walk anymore. So I am extremely lucky that my only deficit is my vision. I'm cognitively intact, which means I can think, I can do math. I know this is my dad. I know what day of the week it is. I know who the president is, unfortunately. Like, I have those things intact. I can move my limbs, you know, those things are super important, and I'm very grateful that happened. But it was very scary because it did come on suddenly. So what I would end with is, don't take any little change in your health frivolously. So don't think like, oh, it's a little hypertension. A little hypertension is the silent killer of literally everyone. And so watch your diet, watch your health, exercise, do what you need to do. Because even if I had done that and my blood pressure was good, it could have happened later on down the line. They told me that this problem is usually in people who are in their 60s. However, I'm Black, and that matters. Black people tend to they're predisposed to early hypertensive emergencies and early hypertensive manifestations, meaning that it shows up earlier than everybody else.
But look, I said I wanted to take this political, not necessarily with her, because like she's a medical school student, they have to be politically neutral, all that good stuff. But not really politically neutral, but they have to be sensitive with the way they say certain things. But I tell you something, we are blessed in that my daughter is at Howard University in DC, and they had health care. All the med students get health care. And had she gone into that emergency room, and if it weren't the emergency room of the university that she went to, there's a good possibility that had she presented anywhere else, she would have had massive problems, first taken seriously based on how she had looked then. But it is so important when we sit down and talk about Medicare for all, when we sit down and talk about my daughter, yes, it's great that she got that, but it is essential that she came out of this in this state. I can say, oh my God, great, this is my daughter, and it turned out fine so far, and we are going to make sure to work with her so that she keeps her blood pressure down, so that she keeps her stress level down, and so that she's not as sometimes forceful like her daddy is. But my point here is this: every American citizen, every single one, should have the outcome my daughter had. Every single American is due that. And for those Trump supporters and all those that are standing against Medicare for all of you, if you know how I felt on that airplane waiting 10 hours before I could see my daughter's face. 10 hours. Because think about knowing that instead of 10 hours going to somebody getting care, 10 hours going to somebody who's going to die. So folks, the reason I asked my daughter to do this with me is because I am starting to tell real stories. Last month, we lost our mother-in-law, her grandmother, to a stroke. Her grandmother had a stroke during dinner on Christmas at our home. When she had her stroke and stopped talking, Ashley, third-year medical student that she is, diagnosed her grandmother, checking pupil dilations and much more to say, yes, Dad, she had a stroke. She went into the hospital with Medicare, the old-style Medicare, and we watched the private hospital system pilfer her. We watched the private healthcare system under Medicare take advantage of a woman that was dying. And 3 weeks later, we have my daughter presented with, look, we need a better solution in healthcare in this country, Medicare for all. This is not something that we can just talk about and decide about and wait 5 years for and decide that just maybe because we don't want this democratic socialist or this socialist woman or whatever you want to call them to be a part of, to run a country, that you're going to put the lives of your friends, your families, your daughters, your daddies, your granddaughters, your sons, your cousins, and everybody at risk. It just isn't right. I am so thankful to have my daughter here with me. But folks, I want you to share this. This is so very important. I want to thank my Politics Done Right family. All of you that are subscribers, all of you that are donors, all of you that make this happen, I want to thank you so kindly. Remember this, we have to start thinking about each other. We have to start thinking about all our healthcare, our well-being, and much more. We have to be our brother's keeper. I am your brother. Ashley is your sister. We are family. And once we start to act like that as a people, we can move forward as a country.